welcome to our second episode of the AeroAstro Talks. And today, here's Angelika and myself, Aleena, and we'll be talking about our experience at the Farnborough Air Show.
Yeah, so it was a while back now, wasn't it? We were filming this a few weeks later, 2 weeks later, but it was a very busy week. We had RAeS, which happened over the weekend of the 19th to the 21st of July. That was really good fun, but Farnborough Air Show was definitely the highlight for us. We got lucky enough to go for 2 days, on Thursday and on Friday, and there's just loads to talk about, isn't there?
Loads to talk about. If you want to hear about big news that happened at the air show, plug into the Royal Aeronautical Society No 10 podcast and you'll hear more. We went in with the perspective of being a young person interested in the aerospace sector, and we're here to share some of the most useful and valuable information that we got.
So on the first day, the first people we spoke to were the intern and grad from Airbus, and Airbus was so cool. We not only got to speak to them, we went to their chalet, and then afterwards we were actually invited to the C295 plane, I believe, do the interviews there, which was incredible.
And here's what Caitlin and Noah had to say about their experience.
Would you be able to tell us why you chose Airbus for your grad scheme?
Absolutely. So I love the aerospace industry, but Airbus not only offers commercial aircraft, it also does defence and space and helicopters as well. So you get a really multi-divisional job when you work at Airbus, which is why I chose it.
Awesome. So you said you're coming to the end of your grad scheme now.
Yes.
What's been the most exciting project you've worked on?
The most exciting project was when I spent 3 months in Brussels at the end of last year. So I was able to do the EU communication side, and also it was Christmas time. So the city was very festive, getting to know colleagues out there, stakeholders, and exploring a whole new team as well was brilliant.
And what have you been doing at Farnborough Air Show this year?
So I have been looking after our sustainability and innovation corner. So talking to customers and talking to stakeholders about our decarbonisation roadmap and educating them on the milestones that we have set out.
What's been the highlight of the air show this week so far?
I think the highlight has been seeing all of the sustainability announcements, and that it's really picking up pace and picking up traction. And it does feel like the industry is really united together to drive forward to Destination 2050.
Nice. So now that you've been here for almost 4 days, why would you say a young person should come to an air show?
Just to be able to see the aircraft flying, different companies, speaking to people. And it's when you go to an airport, you can see the planes taking off and landing, but to see the displays and the innovation that companies such as Airbus are actually displaying is fantastic and brilliant to see.
Would you be able to tell us where we are right now?
Yeah, so we're on our beautiful Airbus static at Farnborough Air Show on our C295 made down in sunny Seville in Spain.
Awesome. Why did you pick Airbus for your internship?
Well, I'm a bit of an aviation nutter, and this is just the best aerospace company to work for in the world, because the variety of stuff that Airbus do is just pretty insane. So why would you not want to work for them, really?
Would you be able to tell us a bit about a cool project that you've been a part of?
Yeah, so actually recently I took part in the 80th anniversary of D-Day as part of our heritage things that we do, and I got to go over to Normandy for the British Franco-Normandy Memorial commemoration, so that was really quite touching to be a part of.
And what have you been doing at Farnborough Air Show this week?
So I'm part of our public affairs team, so I've been working with all sorts of politicians coming to visit our aircraft to learn about the amazing things that we do across our business, from sustainability to defence and space, to helicopters, to sales on massive aircraft. So it's really been fun.
What's been a particular highlight for you?
Highlight for me actually came on the first day, where before he opened the show, the new Prime Minister Keir Starmer came down and had a little chat with us, had a little chat about skills and apprenticeships and how important apprenticeships are as equal to university degrees. So it was really important for me to talk to him about that.
And now that you've been here for nearly a week, why would you say a young person should come to an air show?
I mean, why would you not want to? The aircraft flying over, I've never been to an air show at an airfield before, it's always been on the seafront. And seeing them take off, ready to do their displays, the fast jets going over, setting off all the car alarms, it's just pretty amazing, and it's just inspiring to be at.
I think the really cool thing about Airbus was how every role was focused on sustainability, and that was a massive thing they spoke about, and a massive thing that was part of their displays, which was really cool to see. A company as big as that was really trying to hone in on that.
Talking about big players, of course we have to mention about the BAE, and we were so lucky to have been able to interview 2 graduates who entered BAE through their graduate scheme. We were able to walk around and see for ourselves the spectacular Tempest model.
Honestly spectacular.
And
it was humongous, and you could see the internals of the model.
The animations were
through
really
their
cool.
animations, yeah.
And of course, Angelika was able to try
The helmet, yeah. So they had a new concept for their Typhoon pilot helmet, and it was really cool. It was very futuristic. You kind of put it on. There's a picture, I'm sure, out there on our Twitter and our Instagram of me with a helmet on, and you could kind of see the targets and see threats, and, so that all of the kind of information from the internet and from their other domains was coming in and being fed through to the pilots through their helmet, which was insane.
And also, what I enjoyed the most was going on a simulator. I was able to land on their Alton site, which was
very cool.
Very cool. Let's hear what Sam and Rish has to say about their experience.
Hello, I'm Sam, so I'm a graduate at BAE Systems, and what I work on is this great aircraft behind us. This is the GCAP Tempest model that we've unveiled today, or this week at Farnborough. So I've always been interested in military history, and BAE Systems has such a proud history and heritage in the aircraft that has made it what it is today. And I really wanted to join a company where I could contribute to that and really push the boundaries into the future. I think one of the most rewarding aspects is being part of a team that's so live and innovative. To be able to reach the 2035 deadline that we are for entry into service on this programme, everyone has to work together to really push forward and innovate in a way that we haven't done before.
When you were at uni doing your modules, what would you say was one of the most important and useful modules that you brought forward with you to your role?
So I went to uni at the University of Bristol to study aerospace engineering, and I would say probably the best one was the final year group project. At Bristol we have industry come in and set us a challenge where in 12 weeks we have to go from a specification to a final design concept. We designed a hydrogen powered helicopter for a Leonardo spec, and just being able to manage a project like that so early in my university career and working career was so useful for me to bring onto this project now.
This whole week, what would you say has been a highlight?
Well, for me personally, it's all of the people I've met. They're so inspirational hearing their stories and also being able to talk about the programme and share my passion. In terms of the show itself, the performance of the F-15s was really remarkable. It's quite interesting to see.
What would be a piece of advice you give to students or young engineers going into the aerospace industry?
I think it's so important to just talk to people, network, find out about other people's jobs, because that will really allow you to explore and really understand what you want to do going forward.
Hi, my name is Rish. I work at BAE Systems. I joined BAE Systems back in 2020 on the graduate scheme, but before then I was fortunate enough to be offered a sponsorship through which I'd done a summer internship and a year placement at BAE Systems as well.
Why have you chosen BAE to work at?
I mean, ever since I was a young boy, I wanted to always be in the aerospace industry. And then when I was approached with the sponsorship, I couldn't say no. Just the sheer amount of variety that we have in the roles at BAE Systems, the chance to work globally, is you're never short of an option if you want to do something different. I'm a senior engineer on the GCAP program. So we're working with our international colleagues in Japan and Italy to set up the technical framework to deliver GCAP.
What would you say has been one of the most challenging or rewarding moments?
The most challenging thing about my role is getting over some of the translation barrier and some of the language barriers when we're working with international partners. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, this is absolutely minor, because what they do in a second language, I could never dream to do that. So it's a challenge, but a challenge that it's minor and we can overcome it easily. I think currently I'm focused on delivering against my objectives so that we can enable the 2035 date for GCAP. But I think in the future, I would love to do an international managerial role with BAE Systems.
So you're at Farnborough Air Show at the moment, and what would you say is one of your highlights?
My highlight is definitely seeing the reaction of everyone when they walk through and they see the Tempest model. It's absolutely breathtaking, and the jaw-dropping expressions just never fail to amuse me.
What would you say is one piece of advice you would give to students or young engineers going into aerospace?
I think just don't be scared. I remember going to big air shows like this when I was younger, but being scared to go talk to the people about what technology they were working on, what their role was. So just get to the air show and speak to as many people as you can, and network as much as possible.
So we all know that BAE are massively focused on defence with their new Tempest model, who they work with other companies on. But another player, a key player in defence, is Boeing, which you wouldn't necessarily think of at first. We all know them for their commercial planes. But we had the honour of speaking to Ollie, who was an ex-apprentice working at Boeing in their defence sector, which was very interesting and very cool.
I'm Ollie. I currently work for Boeing here in the UK. I'm an ex-apprentice working on the C-17 programme, supporting our RAF customer at RAF Bryce Norton.
And why have you chosen Boeing?
I chose Boeing as, at first, I didn't know what an impact Boeing had on the UK, but researching the company, they have such a huge impact from the top to the bottom of the UK, and I wanted to be part of that movement. So as part of my apprenticeship, I was able to get hands-on experience on a wide range of aircraft, both commercial and defence. So I worked at our base down at London Gatwick, working on our commercial products. I also got to get hands-on the Apache helicopter, as well as the C-17, which is my favourite aircraft, working alongside the RAF.
What would you say has been the most challenging part of your role so far?
I think the most challenging part is seeing the variation between different aircraft. Although Boeing are the manufacturer of those aircraft, there's all different systems on all the different types of aircraft we make because we've got so many different technologies on them. So it's getting to grips with that has been such a challenge, but I'm learning from the best in the industry.
For students wanting to do an apprenticeship, what would be your biggest advice?
My biggest advice is say yes to every opportunity that comes your way. Never say no to something that lands on your desk, and always take every opportunity.
Since we're at Farnborough Air Show, what has been the highlight of Farnborough?
So the highlight for me being at Farnborough Air Show is inspiring the next generation of aerospace workers and hoping that they too will take a path like myself into the industry.
Within the defence sector, there are other roles, and we were able to meet Meganne at QinetiQ. She's a recent marketing graduate, and here's what she has to say about her experience.
Hi, I'm Meganne. I just came from Oxford Brookes University, and that's where I graduated from, and I studied business and marketing management. And I am on the marketing and communications graduate scheme here at QinetiQ. So QinetiQ is a global defence and technology company. Basically, we create things, we teach them how to use it, and then we help them use it as well. I'm a marketing and comms grad, so I help out with social media, I help out with getting internal comms, so like talking to our internal and both external facing clients as well.
What are some cool projects that you've worked on at QinetiQ?
Oh, some cool projects I'd say is our ambassador program. So basically we're helping create a brand for ourselves. So we helped train our different ambassadors, telling them about what it is we do, why we do it, and just helping them understand our purpose.
What would be your advice for students wanting to go into an engineering company, but not into an engineering role like yourself?
So I'd say the first thing is definitely research the company beforehand, find out as much as you can, and I honestly recommend LinkedIn so much. So connecting with people beforehand, maybe asking them questions. So before I joined this role, I actually reached out to one of the grads who was in the role that I wanted, and I just asked her questions like, oh, would you be free for a coffee chat? And she was really lovely and gave me so much help, made me understand the company so much more than I thought. And honestly, that was the reason I was like, okay, this feels like it's the right thing to do. So I carried on doing it, and here I am now.
What would you say has been the most rewarding experience at QinetiQ so far?
Rewarding experiences. So honestly, everyone's been so supportive. So I've gotten involved in loads of different projects and been involved with loads of different teams as well. So an example is today. So part of my team is the events team. So I wouldn't have been here today if I wasn't part of the events team. And I just wanted to be here to help different students learn more about STEM, and also learn that although we are a STEM company, we also have roles outside of STEM as well.
And what's been your highlight so far at Farnborough Air Show?
Farnborough Air Show. Honestly, I don't know if you guys have seen the displays already, but they're so cool, and it's one of the best things about the show. Obviously, the people as well. Meeting all the students has been really nice.
QinetiQ have loads of roles, not only marketing, like we just heard from Meganne, but they also have apprenticeships in business. And we met Emma, who was lovely. She was really good fun, really nice to speak to, and she's doing an apprenticeship at QinetiQ at the moment in business. So here's a little bit about what she has to say about the opportunities in defence, but not specifically in engineering.
My name's Emma. I am a degree apprentice at QinetiQ, working in the continuous improvement team whilst also studying at the University of West London for my chartered management status and degree in business management. The fact that I didn't know much about it intrigued me even more. Now that I'm here, I'm discovering new things every week, every day that we do. Some specialise and more technical than others, but there's a lot of different roles that are available to a lot of different people with different backgrounds.
So you've been there for a year now. What would you say has been your most challenging?
The most challenging would be the beginning few months, because coming from sixth form straight out of completing my A-levels into the world of work, specifically the defence engineering industry, is a complete switch, but it's been one that I've tried to embrace the most and create as many opportunities as possible.
What's been your most rewarding moment?
Now this one is an easy one. It would be RAeS last weekend. And I know FIA and RAeS are competitive, but yeah, I was representing QinetiQ on the stall in the Techno Zone. Was there for 2 days over the weekend, interacting with lots of different students, creating the Banshee speed build that we have on the stall there, whilst also being able to enjoy the display of the F-15s and the F-35s, which was a definite highlight. Able to network and get more immersed in the defence industry.
Yeah. What are your future aspirations? In QinetiQ or just beyond in your career?
So this is something I've been thinking about recently a lot, because having done my first year now, obviously you're a bit closer to the end and a bit more opportunities are available now. So something I would like to learn more about is project management and possibly bid management within QinetiQ. But outside of QinetiQ, I'm also exploring opportunities to be a pilot commercially and also in the military.
How has it been being in an engineering environment and a technology company, but not having a strictly technical engineering role?
Yeah, it's a good question, because a lot of people will assume that everyone in the defence industry is an engineer or someone technical. And I'd say my experience is quite different to that. I don't encounter technical jargon every day. It's always very different. Embrace the fact that you're in the minority and be the person who will introduce yourself to someone new or go and speak to someone, because someone will always want to tell you about their role or what their career path was up until this point. So utilise the fact that they want to tell you everything and just listen and absorb.
What would be your advice to students considering an apprenticeship rather than the traditional degree university?
In the politest way, ignore what they're saying, and the first thing you can do is explore the different opportunities. I think that's the main point that I would say. Just explore, and it might not be for you, and that's absolutely fine, but definitely explore. There's so much out there. I don't even know everything out there, but I definitely researched a lot. I spent a few months before even applying, just to know the industry a bit more to what I did previously.
Meganne mentioned the importance of networking, and funny enough, Emma reached to us via LinkedIn on the day, which was very enthusiastic of her. Someone that inspired us with her networking ability is Miss UK.
And I think that's so crazy, the ability to kind of use your different interests and hobbies to your advantage and use the networks that you have from different groups of people to aid you in your career and just kind of know people. And we were just walking around the air show with Jessica, and she just knew everyone and everyone knew her, and it was really cool to see the kind of relationships she had set up with big players in the industry.
My name is Jessica Gagen. I'm an aerospace engineer and the reigning Miss United Kingdom.
What particularly are you interested in aerospace?
I'm interested in all things new development, especially hydrogen as aviation fuel. I think that's really interesting, big sector which is going to boom in the next few years, so it's something to look out for.
And you do so much in your life. How on earth do you balance all of your passions?
I think it comes down to priorities and what needs doing when. So if, for instance, I've got a really big speech coming up, then the day before is going to be dedicated to the speech. But then if there's work priorities, or everything changes all the time. I would also say lack of sleep on some occasions, which I wouldn't recommend. But yeah, I'm just passionate and want to balance everything that I can. So,
how did you get involved with Miss UK and that whole world? And why did you get involved?
It's an interesting story. I was promoting aerospace engineering and STEM through my Instagram, because I realised there's hardly any girls on my course, which was aerospace engineering at the University of Liverpool. And so I started to make all of this content, doing different school talks around the UK, and I got scouted for the Miss Lancashire competition. And long story short, I won Miss Lancashire Miss England, went to Miss World. At Miss World, I won Miss World Europe, and then I also was given the title of Miss UK because I placed highest out of the UK candidates. So I couldn't have planned it, but that's how I ended up getting into it.
Where do you think you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Working in aerospace. I'd also love to be carrying on doing public speaking and just empowering more children, whether that's, you know, jumping on the TV for 10 minutes of like 7 o'clock at night on the one show because there's like some new science tech development, or whether that's just going into schools, you know, doing online things, creating the content, essentially doing exactly what I'm doing now, but then also working in aerospace. And yeah, I just love it.
So in your talk at Farnborough Air Show, you mentioned the importance of mentorship and how helpful that can be.
Yes.
What's your advice to young engineers looking for a mentor? How did you get a mentor? What helped you?
People, what's really important is to go onto LinkedIn and find people who have a job that you're looking at. And that doesn't mean they have to work for the specific company, but really look into people's profiles, look at what they've studied, look at their journey to get in their role. Typically, if you reach out to these people, and you might even just have a question you want to ask. I remember reaching out to somebody who worked at BAE Systems in my first year of university. I said, I don't know whether I should do the integrated master's degree or should I just do the bachelor's degree or this or that. And then it was about a year later, she reached out to me and she said, hey, like, you know, we've got applications open, and, you know, I think it'd be really good if you applied in coming years. When you do apply, please reach out to me. Like, I'd love to help you through the journey. And I thought, wow, that's so nice. And that's because we connected, and it was a compliment as well to her that I'd chosen to reach out to her. And I take it the same way when people message me on LinkedIn. I'm like, of course I will help you. That's so nice that people would ask for my help. So definitely, yeah, network. That's key. Your network is your net worth.
One of the most lovely, enthusiastic people that we were able to meet were Apprentices from British Airways.
Yeah. I've never seen anyone so actually in love with their careers. Maybe we're pushing it too far. Maybe they're going to watch this back and think, okay, we're not that in love. But we could feel how much they enjoyed what they do. And it was very, very, very cool to see. Especially the kind of aspirations they had and how they're actively working towards that, and how British Airways is really enabling that. So here's the interview we had with them. It was in a very busy, very loud location, but they definitely stole the show and they were just amazing.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm a ground operations apprentice.
Hi, I'm Poppy and I'm a customer service apprentice.
Hello, I'm Jake and I'm also a ground operations apprentice. Currently, me and Jack are doing loading, so we're in charge of loading the aircraft, whether that will be a short haul or a long haul aircraft.
I'm in customer service, so the majority of my day is spent checking people in. I also help board flights, but a lot of it is just customer facing, and I help people with their issues on a day-to-day.
We have chosen British Airways because it's a great scheme. We looked into many of them out there, and British Airways provided an in-depth field of what we're going to be doing, and of course it covers all of the ground operations, so we learn about the aspects and how your flight gets from A to B.
I've always wanted to work in aviation, and for me, I've always viewed British Airways as being sort of the face of aviation. So I thought that if going forward I was working with British Airways, it would be a really great stepping stone for me to move forward in my career.
A typical Tuesday for me will be clocking into work into the terminal building, Terminal 5 at Heathrow. Once I've done that, I will go and meet the person for the day that I will be with, spending the day with for the loading, and then once we're assigned our job for departure and arrival, we'll head over to the aircraft, whether it's an arrival or departure, and we will either be offloading or loading the aircraft and just making sure that everyone's safe and making sure that the aircraft departs on time.
My day-to-day looks like I arrive at Terminal 5, I clock in like Jake does, and then I get assigned a task on a little phone, and they tell me where I'm going to be going. So this could be check-in, this could be hosting, depending on where I am based. And of course, it could also be in the lounges, boarding flights, things like that. We have 9-hour shifts, and we have about maybe 2.5-hour rolls at a time, and then we get a half-hour break. We get 2 of those in a day.
We've been only here for since the starting, so we had a quick walk around and we got to see, of course, all the commercial jets. Watching over social media for the past week, building ourselves up to even just coming here to represent BA. We, of course, looked at everything that's happened and, of course, looking at all the deals that are going on. So Farnborough definitely was a good air show.
Being on the podcast
I have to second being on the podcast, but also being here at Farnborough, because this is actually my first time here. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to do it and volunteer to showcase British Airways and the apprenticeship schemes that we have here. So I think just seeing all the aircraft as an av geek, it's amazing just to see how it's all set up and how everything runs.
My big advice is getting used to being waking up early, and of course getting used to working late. It's one of those things, like from my background, it's of course late nights gaming and everything like that. So of course from the late nights gaming, waking up late in the day, to having to get up at that time early in the morning, is definitely something to get used to, but it is worth it because of course you get to experience the aviation world. And of course going into work, I'm just thinking I'm going to be near my favourite job.
Mine would be sort of similar to Jack in the fact that I do shift work, so I wish beforehand I had some sort of experience working shifts, or I had prepared myself more for that, because it is a difficult adjustment to make. But once you're in it, it's really easy. I just wish that I had been more prepared at the beginning.
Aviation never sleeps. It's 24 hours, depending on what airport you're at. So I think definitely adjusting to the shift times, but everyone's different of how they adjust. Fortunately for me, I adjusted quite nicely to it. I think personally for me, just the first time being airside with my job, seeing it from that point of view that the passengers don't see it from, seeing all the aircraft around, seeing different liveries come in as well, because we currently have a A319 with our retro livery, and it looks very nice. So I'd say, as an av geek, just being able to see the aircraft up close and being able to talk to the pilots as well is such an amazing opportunity, as that's where I'm hoping my future career puts me to, being a pilot of British Airways.
Probably say my first day after training, when I actually got on the desk, and similarly after my airside training, they're separate. My first day, or my first task, actually going and doing it, not having someone watching me, it was just sort of a real sense of like, I'm here and this is the job that I've been wanting to do for so long. It was a real surreal moment, and I don't think that I'll forget that for a really long time.
I've got two favourites really. The first one is the opportunities that British Airways gives us as apprentices. Of course, we've had many experiences in different events. So I've done school visits, I've done managed to help out at a Flying Heroes event. And of course here at Farnborough, many opportunities that you get given. So of course it's great to help out with them because we get to experience it. But when actually on the job, it's definitely connecting the customers. I just like seeing that when something goes wrong or not as it should, being able to still get the customer on their journey and being able to have a relaxing flight. Really, I don't know. I can't explain it, but it's just that feeling that you get, that you know that customers going away are happy and enjoying their holiday or business trip.
British Airways has amazing opportunities through apprenticeships and graduate schemes, but also a potential for people to become pilots between the ages of 17 to 55 can apply for the Speedbird Academy, which opens at the start of every year. We had a lovely lecture at the university from Captain Susan Morgan. There's incredible potential for people who do aspire to become pilots despite financial obstacles. So definitely have a look into the Speedbird Academy.
Because that's the big thing, isn't it? It's money and actually becoming a pilot and how much that costs. So I think, Captain Susan Morgan did really good job in explaining kind of how British Airways and the Speedbird Academy helps with that. We've got a pilot over here, so if you've got any questions, reach out to her.
Of course, I'm here to help. Talking to all these apprentices, what was very striking was that the amount of practical experience that several of them have. If anyone finds it easier to learn or understand about the industry, hands-on experience within the aviation sector or aerospace sector, going into an apprenticeship would be highly valuable.
Here we have Tom from the UKRI, so the UK Research Institute, who do loads of things in the space sector, and Tom kind of speaks a bit about what they do and in particular what he does. And it's very cool. It's in the technology kind of team, and they had an amazing display as well, which we had a look around.
Hello, my name is Tom. I'm an apprentice with the STFC part of UKRI. STFC is the Science and Technology Facilities Council, and we do all sorts of science and research. So we've got the central laser facility on site, which is all about laser science. We've got the ISIS neutron and muon source, which is a particle accelerator, one of the largest in the UK. And we've got a technology department which supports all the other departments on site, and various sort of laboratories and research places. At the moment, I'm a rotational apprentice doing a mechanical engineering apprenticeship scheme. One of my placements was helping the ISIS team with setting up experiments. So that's working with scientists and other technicians. So machining is, it may seem somewhat sort of the same sort of thing all the time, but essentially it's just all the departments on site. They've got their own design teams. My department's got their own design teams. They all make whatever parts they need for whatever experiment, send it off to the workshop, and then we order in material for it, set it up on our machines. We've got loads of machines in the workshop. We set them up, make the part, measure it, and we've got a fully qualified metrology lab on site, so we can get the most accurate measurements of our parts, so we know that they are exactly how they should be.
What would you say is the biggest advantage to doing an apprenticeship at UKRI?
What I would say is the best thing about it is you don't need to go straight into university doing quite a high level sort of course. You can start just essentially at an A-level equivalent course. You can start immediately earning money. You know, as a young person, that's what is quite good to have, because then you can support your family, support yourself by buying, say, a car to get to work, that kind of thing, if you don't have that already. The main thing really is that this apprenticeship doesn't just end here. It goes right the way up to degree level. You start off with the level 3. Once you pass that, you can do the higher level courses, level 4s, level 5s, and once you've settled with a department, you can then, if the budgets allow, you can have your degree paid for you completely. We aren't looking for, say, the smartest people in the world, because for our requirements, you just need to pass your GCSEs in 5 subjects, 3 of them being English, science and maths. All we're looking for is those who really want to learn. Anyone who has even the slightest bit of interest in engineering or space or whatever, or science. Anyone with the smallest amount or the largest amount of enthusiasm is what we want. We want the people who are willing to learn, willing to put the time and effort into becoming an engineer.
I was really interested in trying to learn more about Orbex, which is a small rocket company, and they focus on orbital launches.
Yeah, for the small sat industry in particular,
Yeah.
so very niche, very cool.
So I was just looking for, where's Orbex? And
No, it wasn't. Where's Orbex? It was Orbex, screaming it.
And then, we had someone just put their hand up and was like, I'm Orbex.
I'm Orbex. She said, I'm Orbex.
And then, we had a really nice talk with her, and she gave a lot more insight into how the accommodation of the company as well, and how people,
Yes.
that was quite nice.
That was really cool, because I feel like, especially when going to Scotland or somewhere so remote, not that every Scottish city is remote, but in particular where Orbex is based, there's nothing going on, and she said how the company helps you with accommodation and supplies that and supports you in your personal life, not just in your work life, which is quite unique. I don't think many companies do that.
It's a very unique culture within the company.
Then we met Steve from Spaceforge, and Spaceforge is very cool. Again, a very, well, not very small company, but smaller company compared to your big players. And they look at reusable in-orbit manufacturing. So they spoke about their semiconductors to us, and they had a really cool model of their, like, the normal size of a semiconductor.
And how smaller they can make.
And there was a big difference.
And no, one thing I was really interested was learn how Steve talked about origami.
Yes, that's what he did his PhD in.
Yeah, so very inspiring. So anyone who's interested in origami, you can go into space.
Yeah, he did his whole PhD on it, and it was really cool speaking to someone who was after a PhD. It kind of steered us in a different direction to the grads and the interns that we were speaking to. We had someone who had a few more years of experience, but yeah, loads to kind of learn from him. So here's what he was talking about.
So I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Bristol doing aerospace engineering. And then I stayed on to do a PhD in engineering origami, so unfolding structures for space and things like that. Towards the end of my PhD, I did an internship at a high altitude ballooning company. Went there after my PhD, spent 2 years doing some high altitude ballooning, and then I moved to Space Forge about a year and a half ago to be the lead satellite operations engineer, and also managing the Forgestar 1 product as well. This is our Forgestar 1 satellite. The idea is that it's a technology demonstrator, so it proves our manufacturing processes, it proves how we can go through the process of operating a satellite, and then also proves the new kind of heat shield technology as well.
What's been your highlight at Space Forge so far?
It's got to be being in a startup environment, being able to touch a bit of everything and have a bigger impact on everything. Because as we're developing processes and moving forward, those processes aren't set yet. So we set the rules for Space Forge going on now at this moment.
And what is the highlight so far?
It's got to be the diversity of different people that I've been able to talk to. So people that I've known previously who've come up and said hello, that I've not seen in a long time, who have been in the same industry, and then new people who are taking an interest in what we do and being excited about what we do. Seeing people's excitement in what we've got is very satisfying. There's so much industry out there that you don't know exists. There's a lot of people, for example, for us, there's a lot of people who've talked to us today who didn't know that we existed. And so it's an opportunity to go out and actually see what is the industry, what's going on, what kind of opportunities and things are there out there to try. One piece of advice would be, I'm going to plug the SPIN project, because that was what my internship was, space placements in industry. It's a great scheme where companies get to offer internships to students. It comes around once a year. It fits in the summer holidays. It's a great opportunity for those companies to get students and the students to get access into the space companies, and it gets that space on your CV. So that makes the next step of getting a job that bit easier.
One really interesting thing that I think the UK Space Agency spoke about was their Space Advisory Council, and it wasn't the first time I'd heard of it. Back in March for the Spacecom Expo, they were there and they had a big stand as well, and they spoke about it there. And it's a really cool opportunity that some of my friends actually are a part of. So as students, you can join the Space Advisory Council, and you have meetings and you kind of have a say and are able to discuss some of the problems in space and in space sustainability, and work with the people at UK Space Agency to combat them in some way, which it's very cool. And the guys at BAE in Space Missions spoke about it and encouraged us to kind of join it as well. So they were a part of it and they were really cool. In Space Missions is a subsection now, it's owned by BAE Systems, and they look at in-orbit servicing of satellites and using satellites for the defence industries to kind of aid the rest of the defence domains. And it goes to show that even in a not necessarily a space company, you can definitely be in a space role and in a space team. So yeah, very, very good from BAE Systems.
When we were at the stall for the UK Space Agency, we came across a flyer for the AquaLunar challenge. The winner of the challenge would receive £1.2 million pounds, and there currently are 10 finalists. Many of them are
small startups. There's some recent grads in there, PhD students, loads of PhD students, and they were basically tasked with designing a system that can purify lunar water.
So we can start getting water if we go to the moon.
When we go to the moon.
When we go.
And we did really well because we managed to swindle interviews with the finalists, and we had really, really interesting conversations with them about their designs and the problems they face and advice that they would give us as people who have already been out of uni for a few years and have kind of started their own companies and the struggles that come with that. So here's what they had to say.
It's a £1.2 million challenge, and we've been tasked to come up with systems to purify water out of lunar regolith, which is the soil on the lunar surface. We need to build a system that's sustainable, autonomous, and able to handle the harsh conditions of the lunar surface.
My name's Angelika. I'm from Minima Design. We're a product design consultancy based in Suffolk.
and our project is called the Cyclic Volatile Extractor.
My name is Lolan, and I'm from a small company called Leica Scientific. The project this time is called the Sonochem System, and this is to use ultrasound as part of a wider system engineering solution to try to solve the problem of contamination in water fountains.
So my name's Philip Baldock. I am the project lead for the British Interplanetary Society. Our project's called Ganymede's Chalice.
I'm Sean Fletcher, first year PhD student at the University of Glasgow, and I'm team leader for Luna Sonic, which is an ultrasound-based entry to this challenge where we're really focusing on how we can hold the ultrasound to kind of do the things that we want with this water to kind of selectively deal with certain contaminants.
Our system is gravity fed, and we know gravity is obviously less on the moon, but it's still gravity fed. Our system has no moving parts, so it means regolith is extremely abrasive, so it means that some of these rovers you see on the moon, they're only designed to last for a couple of weeks because the regolith actually tear apart into the ball bearings and other elements inside the systems. So our system has no moving parts. It uses a two-stage distillation process as well to separate out the impurities, and all the impurities have a distillation temperature less than water, so they can be removed. So then what is left over is going to be pure water that'll be stored in a cold trap.
I believe the aspects that make Frank unique are the use of established technology. We are relying on technologies that you would see present on any major industrial site on Earth, using filtration, fractional distillation and flashing separation. And by using these component parts and you modifying them for a lunar environment, we can provide a system that's resilient and adaptable to any of the challenges that the lunar environment may pose.
Our project is unique in the sense of it's a one-step process, or we intended to be a one-step process, so we can purify or we can remove most of the contaminants that are going to be present in the regolith.
We're right at the very beginning, so we've gone through the design process, and now we're in the process of trying to get to an actual physical product. And today's the first day of the challenge for us in reality, in theory. So
the current design for Frank is very much a black box process. We know the technology works, but how to apply it into a lunar environment. I guess the next stages to us in our technological development would be the concept of digital twinning, running a digital model to prove the operability of this system in a different environment.
Now we are already to finish the initial design discussion, and we are in all the module design, and in maybe next month, and we are going to start on-scale track test to test the whole station of the in this planet first, and possibly in the future, maybe after October, we probably going to test out kind of running the facility in the American condition and small chamber.
One of the challenging things about this challenge is the actual conditions that we find on the surface of the moon, or anywhere on the moon for that matter. So the temperature can vary from anywhere from kind of the hundreds of degrees to minus 200 degrees Celsius. So that is roughly the temperature of liquid nitrogen. So kind of really, really cold conditions. Pressure. So any water that would exist on the surface would just evaporate. And we're working with gravity that is approximately 1/6 of the strength of gravity that we find on Earth. So number one, how we could adapt our technology to those conditions is challenging. Number two, how we can actually test that here on Earth is kind of a challenge in and of itself.
When you're a university student, this is just the sort of thing that you deal with all the time. Hypothetical situations and so on. Actually making stuff, however, that's the problem that we're facing at the moment. So we are, I should probably start with saying how much we're actually given. The budget is about £30,000 per team. We have 6 months to get our solution done. Actual manufacturing is hard. So in the aerospace sector, you expect to pay, tens of millions of pounds to actually make a satellite or a probe or something like this. So with the money that we have, testing something out requires being very creative.
I feel like a rabbit in headlights. Do you know that expression where there's this thing that I need to do now and it's rushing towards me, and we have 6 months. I mean, £30,000, which is not a lot of money when you get to hardware. I've worked on space hardware a long time ago, and I just started out in the space industry. So I understand what it takes to take something from a piece of paper to hardware, and at the moment I'm just sort of getting over this feeling that this is a lot harder than I originally thought when I put in the application.
Trying to be canny about what you can do within budget constraints and trying to prove out as much as you possibly can with technology is essentially going to be critical, I think, for this project, at least to the next stage. From my perspective, one of the big challenges has been sourcing information, because we're coming into this from a sort of peripheral side of the space industry. We're not involved in designing spacecraft, so we need to find that out, how to do that. Unfortunately, there is a wealth of information out there. The biggest challenge is going to be dust. Lunar dust is horrible, and it's something that you don't have a good handle on Earth. You have to go there and get it. There's no decent analogue of lunar dust. You have to use the real thing.
Even with the new rockets that Elon's coming up with and everything else like that, essentially it's $5 million a litre per kilo to give water to the moon. So all of us have been tasked with coming up with a system that can produce 1 litre an hour, essentially. So obviously the price will change, but nonetheless that's still a super valuable prospect, and still based on the theoretical amount of water ice in various sections of the moon that can house it with the right temperature range. I think it's just amazing that, potentially we're going to be able to, not have to take water to the moon.
So as a final year PhD about to finish, so to be honest, when I get on this project, I was a bit shocked, because for traditionally we are dealing with the water level. This time, water treatment, filtration, reverse osmosis, all those techniques, we know that we work well, because in the past 60 years, since the Second World War, and the human knowledge have improved a lot. The major contribution is the water quality improved a lot. But when I get on this project, do we need to really spend billions of money to make one human, 2 human life to survive in the no life can survive outside this planet? It's crazy. We are the only person. We are the only strength which can survive in this whole, not just Earth, just the whole space. So it's possible if we are going to find something. The other creature outside this planet, and we need to stay with it, possibly have a large chance to find more life and find for leaders outside.
Many a year ago now, with my first day at university, my first year for chemical engineering, and we were told your final project will be a design project, and no matter how much you think about it now, no matter how smart you think you are, you will forget something. And the idea was you will be designing it and you will go, I will use the assumptions I've always used. The temperature outside is 20 degrees, things like that. And it just makes you think of when you're doing this for a lunar environment, you immediately go, well, I know what these numbers should be. I know roughly. I'm plugging the same numbers, 293 Kelvin. And when you come to look at it, you go, it's the lunar surface. We're talking 093 Kelvin. We're talking 1.6 G. We're talking all of these obscure, never, things that you're not familiar with using for your design criteria are suddenly now what you're using as your base. The materials you would normally select, your carbon steel, for instance, for a lot of engineering processes, stainless, depending on the application, they're no longer what you rely on. It's opening a whole new, aspect of engineering design that I've, in my current industrial experience, have not experienced before.
What would be your advice to young people, or just people generally in their careers wanting to get involved in similar challenges? How do you go about finding these? How did you hear about AquaLunar? Any advice?
As with a lot of these things, when you have an opportunity, it's at least give it a chance. I never expected to find myself working with in this industry entirely. The space sector was so far removed from what I found myself in previously. I never would have imagined working here. So I guess when an opportunity comes up, just go for it.
But also, while you're trying to get being shortlisted or something, I think one way to get to that shortlist is thinking out of the box. Probably less is more, but also in complex stuff, maybe the easiest way to get things done also.
So we found out about the project through LinkedIn.
Oh.
Yeah, I was just searching through LinkedIn one day and it popped up and thought, yes, that's exactly the sort of thing we want to be doing.
I think if you're starting out in a career, it's difficult to know what the right thing to do is and what the right path towards your goal is if you indeed know where you want to be. And I think it is it's a journey. There is no correct path. I think it's important to have a clear idea of where you would like to be and be open to changing that over time.
It's interesting that we're talking about the aerospace sector, because I think in many senses getting started in the aerospace sector is a bit like traveling around the solar system. There's the sort of the direct way of doing things, which is usually prohibitively expensive and difficult. But if you watch the titanic forces that are taking hold over the solar system, where the planets are, how they're aligned, it might be possible to find really cheap and elegant ways to get from place to place. So I would say the major things to look at if you want to get involved in a challenge like this are what is fashionable at the moment. Really, not fashionable in the sense of, you know, this or that technology gets talked about a lot, but this or that agency wants this. So the AquaLunar challenge really, I think it's springing up from a renewed interest in the moon, which is driven a lot by the various missions that NASA is working with. So they're very interested in the moon. A lot of money is there. So they actually putting a colony on the moon is extremely difficult, and it requires a huge range of technologies to be developed. So if you can find something there to help, you'll likely have a customer. That's the thing. And then we have SpaceX and so on. My advice would be get clued in on what people want, and see where you could fit into the vision. So there's no point in specializing in things that you don't enjoy. But if you know roughly what you want to be working on, the next thing to do is to figure out how it fits into the lay of the land over the next few years. Like, billions of dollars get moved around in this industry. So potentially, if you're in the right place at the right time, you can take part in something like this and really get somewhere.
You should also find something that you're really genuinely interested in yourself and that you can be passionate about, and that you can almost take ownership of what you would like to see this project become. So I started out, I have no background in the space sector, and so I am a chemist by trade. My PhD is in chemistry, and I kind of fell into this by researching water treatment kind of in a terrestrial setting. And then the opportunity for this challenge came up, where it's like, okay, so that's something I know something about, but I'll require some extra knowledge to work out, how I can make it work in a completely different setting. So opportunities like that it depends on what you're interested in yourself and how you can kind of make it work, and how you can kind of come up with ideas yourself in where you would like to take a project like this. In terms of how I actually fell into my PhD, that just came from one of my lecturers who taught a module on electrochemistry, particularly sustainable electrochemistry, so things like developing electrochemical methods for making fuels, for purifying water, and things like that. So I kind of came into this PhD by talking with him, coming up with some ideas, and also coming up with some ideas myself of things I would like to do in electrochemistry.
A key player in the AquaLunar challenge is Meganne, and who's a reserve astronaut for the UK Space Agency. Meganne emphasised that we should not fixate on what particular career we're going to enter into the space sector, because it could change. So Meganne has a very interesting career path, which she spoke to us about.
My name's Meganne Fiston. I'm a reserve astronaut with the European Space Agency, and I'm commercial exploration lead at the UK Space Agency.
What is the background of your life? How did you get into what you're doing now?
I guess it's a fairly long story. When I was a kid, I kind of changed my mind about what I wanted to do with my life just about every day. I've discovered that that's okay. It's all right to not have an idea of what you want to do with your life when you're 10 years old. But I did a Bachelor of Engineering in Industrial Chemistry, and I had some industrial training placements during that time, a lot to do with water actually. So this week I've been talking about the AquaLunar challenge, and so that my background has kind of come into that. After my bachelor's, I decided to do a PhD. Did a PhD in nanomaterials for hydrogen storage, so fuel cell vehicles. After that, I was looking for some international experience, and I found a job at the National Research Council of Italy in Bologna. So I moved to Bologna for what was supposed to be a 1 to 2 year postdoc, ended up staying there for 9 years. Well, I was working generally on graphene, but one of my projects was on space applications, so it needed to be able to work on satellites, so I got to do a couple of parabolic flights, which were amazing. And I also spent a year doing research in Antarctica, doing climate change research. And it was really when I was in Antarctica that I first started to hear about the next round of applications for astronauts coming up. And I'd learned a lot about myself during the time in Antarctica. I'd learned that I could pick up skills that I didn't think that I had. And I really enjoyed being the custodian of other people's experiments, which is what astronauts do on the International Space Station. So it seemed that the next logical step was to try and do it in space. And so when a couple of years later, for the first time in 13 years, the European Space Agency opened up applications, I was right in there applying.
What does the process of becoming and applying to be an astronaut actually look like?
So we had 22,500 applicants. I guess that's because it was the first time in a long time that ESA had an astronaut selection round. It consisted of 6 phases. It started by, like any other job, we sent in a CV and motivation letter. Then from there, some of us were invited to Hamburg to do a day of computer-based testing, and they tested us on things like maths and physics and logic and memory, hand-eye coordination. And from there, one group was invited to Cologne to the European Astronaut Centre to do a day of psychological testing. So we spoke one-on-one with psychologists in a panel, and we also did teamwork exercises to see how we worked in a team, whether we could be both leaders and followers, and also pair exercises to have a look at our communication skills. From there, we got through to the medical testing round, which was a full week of medical testing. They had a lot of focus on the eyes, actually. It's not that you have to have 20/20 vision, but it does have to be correctable, and your eyes have to be generally quite healthy. But then from there, we had a panel interview. Just like many other jobs, you have a panel interview. It was a particularly tough one, because any time that they thought that you were talking about something, you were in your comfort zone, they took you right out of it and asked about something completely different. And then finally, we had an interview with the Director General of the European Space Agency, and that was more of just a chat. He wanted to get to know us so that he could make his final decision.
What does a typical Tuesday look like for you?
Well, so I was selected as a member of the reserve. The European Space Agency has 5 flights available at the moment, so they selected 5 career astronauts to do their basic training, and they've now graduated. Yeah, so I'm working at the UK Space Agency, and I'm looking at future space stations. So working on our strategy for what happens when the International Space Station is decommissioned, and we're going to start working with commercial space stations. So what does that mean for the UK? How can we continue to do the kind of research that we do now? And how could we contribute to this next generation of space stations? So any given Tuesday, I might be talking to some of those companies. I might be doing outreach activities for the reserve astronaut part of my role, or I might be evaluating submissions to the AquaLunar Challenge, which is an innovation prize that we launched earlier this year, and we've now got our 10 finalists, which we presented today at Farnborough.
What are you most looking forward to in your reserve training when that comes up in the future?
I'm looking forward to a lot of different things. So the whole point of basic training is that everybody gets up to the same level, because we all come from sort of different backgrounds, and so some of us are great at a certain type of science, and some of us are pilots, and some of us are doctors. So we all have to have a bit of training across all those different disciplines, because astronauts have to be able to do a little bit of everything. And you also get to do things like survival training, sea survival and winter survival training, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to getting into the neutral buoyancy facility, so that I can, you know, have a bit of that experience of weightlessness that astronauts get to have on the International Space Station.
What's your dream mission that you could be put on in your wildest dreams?
I would love to go to the moon, because I would love to look back on Earth from the moon the way that we look at the moon from Earth. I think that would be absolutely spectacular.
Not Mars?
I would go to Mars.
Yeah, I would
the opportunity to go to Mars, I would definitely go. But I think just seeing our planet from such a perspective would be good. I think first of all, I kind of alluded to it earlier, you don't have to know right now what it is you want to do with the rest of your life. It's really easy to kind of feel like you're going to be trapped into the decision, like into what you're deciding on now, the subjects that you're choosing now. But there are lots of opportunities that come up along the way, and they kind of direct you to that place where you're really following your passions. So that's the other part of what I'd say, is follow what you really enjoy doing. If you want to be an astronaut, that's fantastic, but make sure you're doing something that you really love first, because then if you are selected as an astronaut, then that's a bonus.
And since we're at Farnborough Air Show, what has been your highlight?
Today, which is the public day, has been an absolute highlight for me, because we've really had the opportunity to talk with a lot of children and have photos and sign things for them, and they are so enthusiastic. I always love to see the curiosity of children.
There were many astronauts or reserve astronauts at the event, especially in the Pioneers of the Future, which was on Friday, the last day, and that was the public day, so there were loads of people. And all these astronauts were really willing to speak to them, and they were willing to speak to us, which was lovely. They were so nice. There was Rosemary Coogan there, which unfortunately we didn't get to speak to, but I'm sure one day we will.
We were lucky enough to see a talk by another inspirational reserve astronaut, John, a Paralympian and a surgeon.
And a surgeon! And just casually an astronaut to top it all off.
Yeah.
What a crazy career path. That's insane, and so nice and just down to earth. So it was very cool just listening to him talk about his experiences. And amidst all of this, running around with the camera and the mic and just speaking to anyone we could, we also did have the chance to just look at the sky and look at the amazing air displays, which you would expect nothing less from Farnborough Air Show. What are your highlights?
Well, the highlights, so we were able to see wing walkers.
What a job is that? I mean, that's crazy. I could absolutely never, but they were so relaxed. I remember just watching them just before they were taking off, and they were just chatting to each other, just chilling, resting on the wings. It was very, very cool.
Yeah, and on the first day we were lucky enough to get into the commentator's box.
Yes! And they were all experienced pilots in there themselves. We spoke to a chief commentator, I believe, and again they were so nice, and we had a little tour of what they do, and they had like a phone that they had to kind of be on standby and listen to any of the updates from the aircrew, and whether a plane was going to be late, early, what was going on, if there were any holdbacks. So it was a very different view of the air show.
We were able to talk to a recent commercial pilot, Ollie. And everyone loved, of course,
the F-16. It's my favourite aircraft.
It's a typical one, but it's got to be the F-16s.
I'd have to reiterate the F-16.
I don't think there was a single person that didn't say that was their highlight. One of my personal favourite moments was when we spoke to SLM, Nikon SLM, who look at additive layer manufacturing, and they have loads of customers around the place, and one of their customers is actually Rolls-Royce. And they work with kind of lattices and the future of manufacturing, additive manufacture, some very cool concepts, very lightweight designs, faster, cheaper ways of manufacturing. So yeah, I love that conversation. They are a German company, so there was a representative from Germany, and they had representatives from the UK as well. So again, kind of the networking importance was really kind of visible in that conversation when they spoke about how many people they knew from all of these different companies, some very big players. I'm very biased because I'm doing a placement in it right now, but very interesting stuff, and definitely something that you can kind of get involved in at university.
So that's all the people that we spoke to. And so what were your highlights?
There were so many, to be honest, but I think I really enjoyed the STEM Trail, which was on Friday morning. So for the public day, loads of people were around the place, but it was really good to see. They had some interesting displays. They had a camera where you could pretend you were on the moon, and the guy leading that display was the most enthusiastic person I've ever seen. That was really, really popular with the kids. They had robots that you could program yourself. It kind of took me back to second year aerospace degree, but that was good. They had loads of 3D printers on display. ESA had a 3D printer that they were kind of teaching the kids how it worked. So I really liked the atmosphere there. It was a good start to Friday.
I really liked the little Lego software, so that you can have how many bricks that you have, and you can play around. It's like, I think it's like a CAD software, so you can build anything.
Lego, yeah.
Lego, so, which is really cool. So if you have any remaining Lego pieces at home, you can just build whatever you want.
But we can't forget about
the wind tunnel.
The best part of my year, probably. That was incredible.
It was built in 1935.
It was first opened in 1935, so it couldn't have been built. You know, it was built a little bit before.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of, I think, the oldest in the UK.
Yeah.
And we got a whole tour of it.
We were so fortunate to be part of the podcast by the Royal Aeronautical Society,
which was filmed in the wind tunnel, and you can go and check it out. So cool. What an interesting setting. Never been in anything like it for a podcast, so very nice.
And we do definitely have to say a thank you to Tim, Stephen, Bella.
The whole team were amazing.
Because so we wouldn't have had this opportunity to engage with the with individuals within the Farnborough Air Show without them.
And again, it's networking that comes into play, because they are master networkers. Again, they know everyone. Got really incredible professional relationships with so many people, and they were able to introduce us to so many of the people at Farnborough, which we were really lucky to speak to.
Thank you for listening to our second episode of AeroAstro Talks. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Follow us to hear more, learn more about the aerospace sector from Young Persons Committee of the Royal Aeronautical Society of Solent Branch.
And let us know if you've got any suggestions for future episodes, any questions, anything like that. Reach out to us and we can hopefully even connect you to the right people. So yeah, thank you very much.